So before you start working on your machine with it up in the air, first thing you're going to want to do is take and put the lockout mechanism on whatever cylinder you have for your lift arm. Here on the tool cat, it's tucked up in here, just held in place by one pin, drops down, goes right there to make sure that you're not going to get squished by anything. So I'm going to be going through how to remove and replace your curb guard here. It's this metal piece that goes along the arm. That's what protects your arm from curbs and other damaging things that can scratch or possibly bend that arm. It's bolted up to the frame in here. There's going to be a few different wrenches we'll need. We'll need a 9/16 inch wrench, 3/4 inch wrench, and then the corresponding sockets on either impact guns or ratchets. And then you'll also need some sort of a pry bar, or you could also use a flathead screwdriver that we'll need after a little bit here. So to start off, I'm going to be taking the 9/16 inch socket and wrench. There's this one little piece of metal here. It's kind of hard to see on the camera, but got one bolt on there. So I'll get the socket on the bolt, reach around with the wrench here, and now that comes off. Take that nut out with you, and now I can pull that bolt out. You'll see here, this little piece of metal is what's tucked up under there. That's just keeping any snow from drifting out underneath the curb guard and making it easier to get that in and out. Now I'm going to be taking the 3/4 inch socket, putting that on the inside, on the back nut first, because that's a little easier to get at. You'll probably need some sort of a wobble extension or a ratchet, like I said. Take and put the wrench on this back bolt. Now I'll loosen that up. So that came out. I got did have the bolt with me. Got the nut here. Pick up a bolt and a washer. And now I'm going to be doing the front one. So get that socket back on there. And look back here, reach in. A little easier to use the box end. You might need to spin it a little. There we go. Oh, luckily dropped my nut right on the table. And now I should be able to kind of wiggle that last bolt out of there. So now after you get that last bolt wiggled out, got it here with the washer, you'll see that this is almost free. All that's holding it in now is there is a stud on the back side here. So there's a stud welded here. You can kind of see where it was welded, and that goes into the arm tube back here. So now I'll take my little pry bar and just wiggle that out. So now that came out. I'll grab this here, see if I can get this out of here. There. So that wiggles out right past that rubber piece. That's now you see where those bolts come through on the inside. Got this here. That's that first hole. Got 2 bolt holes there, and then that's that stud that goes in on the back side there. So that would be if you had your bad one. Obviously put that somewhere else. And then here you'd have your new one. And going to replace this, I'm gonna just reverse that process I just did. Kind of take and should be able to. Might be a little tricky, but there we go. Get that wiggled through there. If you want to make it easier on yourself, you can remove this piece of rubber belting first, but it's obviously doable there. So now after you get this front part wiggled through there, now you'll take and line this stud up, and it should just slide in there nice and easy for you like that. Now this will probably be the trickiest part after you got that stud back in there. Now you got to get these bolts back in. Kind of just come back behind here. Should be able to reach in. Get those pushed in one at a time. Take and see if I can get to that other one. Takes a little finagling, but nothing if a guy's worked on a car a little bit, hasn't done before. So now you get those both back in there. I'm just going to hold them with my fingers, And take and thread the nuts back on the inside. First one done. Now the second one. So now those are threaded back on there. Now I'll get my 3/4 inch wrench and my socket again. I'll start from the back side. Get that one tightened up first. Reach around with the wrench. Make sure your impact's in forward and tighten her up. That tightened up. Now I'll get the socket off and back onto the other one. Reach back in there with my wrench again. And now just repeat that process. So they're both nice and snug. Got nylock nuts on there, so don't need to be too tight by any means. Now I'm gonna take and come through, replace this piece of metal back behind here. And this will also be a little tricky, but a guy can get it pretty easy. I'll take, this one will take the bolt from the inside, put that through. Just look on the back side, get that hole lined up. I need to thread it through a little bit. And now I'm gonna take my box end of my wrench, put my nut back in there. And that'll help me hold it up onto that bolt. Now I can just thread the bolt with my left hand to get that nut started. Once I feel confident it's started, just to make sure we're not cross-threading anything, now take your socket and other impact, make sure that's in forward, and then just tighten this up. And now you should have a newly installed curb guard all ready to start blowing some snow.